PM engages with business leaders from top Australian companies. Singapore takes no position on South China Sea claims. Good afternoon. Thanks for tuning in. You're watching World Today with me, Daryl Baptist. In our first story, a rather worrying development. An Augusta Westland AW139 helicopter owned by the Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency, or MMEA, crashed in the waters near Pulau Angsa, Kuala Selangor this morning. Selangor Police Chief Dato' Hussein Omar Khan said that they received an emergency call regarding the incident from the public at around 10 a.m. He said the initial information received indicated that there were 4 victims who were rescued by fishermen. The Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia, or CAAM, also confirmed the incident and will issue a statement shortly. CAAM CEO Captain Nur Azman Mahmud said they are currently in the final stages of gathering information related to the incident before issuing an official statement. MMEA also will issue a statement regarding the incident. We will provide more updates as the situation develops. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim engaged business leaders and top executives from 18 Australian companies in Melbourne in the course of his official visit to Australia, encouraging them to expand their businesses and investments in Malaysia. Apart from a roundtable meeting session, Datuk Sri Anwar engaged them on a one-on-one basis to hear them out. The company executives were from the manufacturing sector, including medical devices and metals, as well as the service sector, such as data centers, finance and trading. Datuk Sri Anwar highlighted that Malaysia, under his leadership, has implemented clear and effective policies leading to unprecedented levels of investment. He said the government, which is currently stable, is a major factor in attracting investors to Malaysia. Malaysia's approved investment hit 329.5 billion ringgit last year, which is 23% higher compared to 2022, the highest in the country's history. Of the total investment, foreign investment was the main contributor, accounting for 57.2% compared to domestic investment at 42.8%. In 2023, Malaysia and Australia's bilateral trade stood at $18.57 billion, with Australia being Malaysia's 10th largest trading partner.
Actually, in research and development and to try to foster.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan has invited Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim to visit his country as the two leaders discussed stronger bilateral relations in a telephone call. Datuk Sri Anwar called Shehbaz on Monday to congratulate him on becoming Pakistan's 24th Prime Minister. The state-run Associated Press of Pakistan, APP, reported both leaders underscored the importance of regular high-level exchanges to build stronger relations between Pakistan and Malaysia. Apart from bilateral relations, the two discussed the situation in Gaza. Shehbaz faces a tough challenge to stabilize the economy and calm political tensions. No party secured a simple majority in the National Assembly after the 8th February elections. Shehbaz was elected to the top post on Sunday with the support of other parties, including the Pakistan's People's Party, or PPP. Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong today said his country takes no position on the South China Sea claims during a press conference in Melbourne, where he attended the ASEAN Special Summit. Lee emphasized that Singapore has a strong view on international law and freedom of navigation.
The positions we take on those claims are different depending on where we stand, and Singapore takes no position on the claims, but we have a strong view on international law and on freedom of navigation, which we have stated many times. You can look it up, and it has not changed.
China claims almost the entire South China Sea, a conduit for more than $3 trillion in annual shipborne commerce, including parts claimed by ASEAN members, Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia and Brunei. The Permanent Court of Arbitration in 2016 said China's claims had no legal basis. The French Parliament voted Monday to anchor the right to abortion in the Constitution, making France the first country in the world to offer explicit protection for terminating a pregnancy in its basic law. A Congress of both houses of Parliament gathered in a special chamber at the Palace of Versailles easily found the 3/5 supermajority needed for the change, with 780 lawmakers in favour and 72 voting against. President Emmanuel Macron described the move as French pride that had sent a universal message, and a special public ceremony is planned to celebrate the move in Paris on International Women's Day on 8th March. Prime Minister Gabriel Attal said France owed a moral debt toward all women who had suffered before the legislation of abortion, as he urged the lawmakers to pass the legislation. Such joint parliamentary sessions are extremely rare in France and called only for momentous occasions, such as constitutional changes, the last of which was made in 2008. Macron pledged last year to enshrine abortion, legal in France since 1975, in the Constitution after the US Supreme Court overturned in 2022 the half-century-old right to the procedure, allowing individual American states to ban or curtail it. And now some news on America's presidential campaign. Americans from 15 states and 1 territory vote simultaneously on Super Tuesday, a campaign calendar milestone expected to leave Donald Trump a hair's breadth from securing the Republican Party's presidential nomination. Typically, the event, the biggest single day of voting in the country's drawn-out state-by-state primary season, has been a make-or-break moment for candidates as the race narrows. On the Republican side, more than a third of the delegates who will be assigned to the party's national nominating convention in July are up for grabs on 5th March. There is even less high-stakes drama on the Democratic front, as incumbent President Joe Biden is widely expected to be renominated for the job by his party, and likely setting up a rematch with Trump. Tens of millions of Americans are eligible to vote in primaries and caucuses Tuesday, with contests to be held from Maine in the Northeast to California on the West Coast, as well as remote Pacific territory of American Samoa. Primaries or caucuses are also scheduled in Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Colorado, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, and Virginia. Alaska's vote will only cover the Republican primary, with the state's Democrats voting in April. Republicans already held their contest in Iowa earlier this year, but Democrats will announce the winner of their mail-in vote in that state later today. Apple, the company that has brought us the famous iPhones, may soon find themselves in hot water again. A total of 34 digital organizations, including Epic Games and Spotify, have complained to the European Commission this week on changes Apple is making to its services in the European Union, saying it makes a mockery of new antitrust rules in the bloc. Apple in January announced it was modifying how its iOS operating system, Safari browser and App Store operate in the 27-nation EU. It said it was doing so to comply with the DMA, which clamps down on anti-competitive practices online in the bloc. Apple and other big tech companies deemed gatekeepers, Google parent Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft and TikTok owner ByteDance, have until 7th March to come into line with the DMA. The EU law threatens fines up to 10% of global revenue for non-compliance or 20% for repeat offenders. Apple notably announced it was, for the first time, opening its App Store to rival apps and allowing payment services beyond Apple Pay on its iPhones. But app developers going that route had to agree to a new core technology fee from Apple that would charge them 50 euro cents per download for apps getting over 1 million downloads. Many app developers, among them Epic Games, maker of the massively popular Fortnite game, say that it is a huge cost for them. They say it will simply line Apple's pockets and cement its gatekeeper status. Up next, Ecuador judges and politicians arrested in narco purge. That and more coming up after this short break. Welcome back. Israel and the main Palestinian aid agency traded accusations of terrorism and torture after the United States stepped up pressure for a halt in fighting between Israeli troops and Hamas. While mediators in Cairo persisted with efforts towards a Gaza truce, the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, or UNRWA, came under renewed attack from Israel, whose military accused it of employing over 400 terrorists belonging to groups including Hamas. Felipe Lazzarini, the head of UNRWA, has said that Israel provided no evidence against his former employees. In a statement to AFP, Lazzarini said some UNRWA staff alleged they were forced into confessions under torture and ill treatment while being asked about the 7th October attack. Lazzarini also told the UN General Assembly that dismantling the UNRWA would sacrifice a generation of children, sowing the seeds of hatred, resentment, and future conflict. So far, 30,534 people, mostly women and children, have been killed by the Zionists. US Vice President Kamala Harris expressed deep concern over the situation in Gaza during talks with the Israeli War Cabinet member Benny Gantz at the White House. Her office said Kamala urged Israel to let in more aid while calling on Hamas to accept the terms on the table for a ceasefire. Qatari and Egyptian mediators were meeting with United States and Hamas envoys in Cairo for a second day of talks. They are aiming for a halt in fighting before Ramadan starts early next week. Meanwhile, acute power shortages in the Palestinian territory have posed an enduring risk to life-saving care in Gaza's hospitals. At Kamal Adwan Hospital's maternity ward in northern Gaza, solar panels are the only thing keeping incubators running 5 months into the grueling war. Kamal Adwan Hospital is one of only 12 partially functioning hospitals out of 36 in the entire war-battered Gaza Strip.
طبعا احنا انتم ترون انه نعمل على الطاقه الشمسيه في هذا القسم وامام المنخفضات او اي تقصير في حاله الجو فقد يقف هذا القسم عن العمل تماما.
According to Khalud, there are no more functional neonatal care wards in the rest of the coastal territory, piling pressure onto his hospital.
احنا القسم الوحيد المقدم هذه الخدمه في مدينه غزه بالكامل وشمال قطاع غزه. احنا في الاونه الاخيره استقبلنا حالات جفاف حاده جدا وسوء تغذيه. وصل عدد الوفيات 13 حاله وفاه بسبب الجفاف وسوء التغذيه، وكذلك استقبلنا اطفال يعانون من مشاكل في الجهاز التنفسي بسبب مراكز كانوا يمكثون في مراكز اللواء التي تفتقر لكل انواع ومكافحه العدوى.
Power generation is a critical issue plaguing Gaza since the beginning of the war. In a February report, Amnesty International said while Israel has now allowed some fuel to enter Gaza, the quantities remain jarringly insufficient. The US airman accused of leaking top-secret Pentagon documents online pleaded guilty in a US federal court Monday under a deal in which he accepted roughly a 16-year imprisonment in return for prosecutors dropping more serious espionage charges. Jack Teixeira, appearing in an orange prison jumpsuit, pleaded guilty to 6 counts of willful transmission of national defense information. But in the deal worked out between prosecutors and the disgraced serviceman's lawyers, he faces no espionage charges. He will be sentenced to up to 16 years and 8 months under the agreement and must pay a fine of $50,000 and assist intelligence officials to understand the extent and impact of his disclosures. Teixeira is accused of posting the documents, some dated as recently as early March 2023, to a private chat group on the social media platform Discord. The documents, which soon spread across the internet, pointed to US concern over Ukraine's military capacity against invading Russian forces and showed Washington had apparently spied on allies Israel and South Korea, among other sensitive details. It was the biggest such breach since the 2013 dump of National Security Agency documents by Edward Snowden and raised tough questions about access by Teixeira and other junior staffers to high-level secrets. Now we move down to South America. 12 people, including judges and politicians, were arrested in Ecuador yesterday as part of a so-called purge probe into officials suspected of ties to drug trafficking. Attorney General Diana Salazar has in recent months launched a drive to clean up corrupt institutions as the once peaceful country battles powerful narco gangs that have infiltrated the state. Her office wrote on X that police had raided the homes and offices of magistrates, an ex-lawmaker, and the former president of a local court in the southwestern province of Guayas. The operation came as a result of findings in Salazar's metastasis investigation, which was unveiled in December and led to unprecedented raids and arrests against powerful officials. Dozens of judges, politicians, prosecutors, police officers and former prison director stand accused of handing out favors to gangsters in exchange for money, gold, prostitutes, apartments and other luxuries. In Monday's raid, the Attorney General's office said that 2 guns, Rolex watches, jewelry and thousands of dollars in cash had been found at the home of a former lawmaker. Once considered a bastion of peace in Latin America, Ecuador has been plunged into crises after years of expansion by transnational cartels that use its ports to ship drugs to the United States and Europe. More news from South America. The Buenos Aires Press Union protested outside the Tilam state-owned news agency building in the city center after its closure by President Javier Milei's government. The 79-year-old news organization shut down after the Argentine government accused Tilam of spreading propaganda for previous leftist administrations. Tilam, which has been operating for 8 decades and have more than 700 staff, in the latest casualty of Milei's drive to shake up or shut state institutions since taking office in December. Tilam journalist Thomas Iliashev told AFP that he and other employees have received an email in the early hours of Monday morning informing them of the suspension. On Sunday night, journalists had discovered the brutal decision by the government to fence off 2 of the agency's buildings and surround them with police, said Ilyashev, who is also a press union representative. Milei, a 53-year-old political outsider, won a resounding election victory last year on a wave of fury over decades of economic crisis in the country, where annual inflation hovers at 250%. The libertarian and self-described anarcho-capitalist is on a mission to slash state spending, deregulate the economy and shut down government-funded organizations he sees as serving no purpose. Over in Europe, Albania unveiled a newly refurbished NATO-backed airbase on Monday, highlighting the alliance's expanding footprint in southeast Europe as tensions over Russia's invasion of Ukraine rattles the region. The base serves as the latest symbol of Albania's westward shift and a key military buffer in Europe as Russia wages war in Ukraine. During the inaugural ceremony, Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama stressed the importance of the base extended beyond Albania's borders. Rama said the base was another element of security for the Western Balkans region, which, he warned, is not far from the threat of the Russian Federation. Located in an Albanian city formerly named for Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin, the site was once home to dozens of Soviet and Chinese-made planes, left for years to rust in the open air on a former communist airbase. For the past 2 years, the site in the central city, now called Kukova, has been transformed into a modern NATO-backed facility. Several Soviet-era MiG jets were placed at the entry to the Kukova base, invoking the country's communist past. Construction at the base broke ground in early 2022, ahead of Russia's invasion of Ukraine the same year. That has sparked fears of a spillover into NATO and EU member states. After decades of global isolation, Albania became a NATO member in 2009, along with Croatia. German special police forces surrounded a hospital in Aachen late on Monday after they said a woman had barricaded herself inside a room and posed a threat situation inside the building. According to a local police spokesperson, the woman entered the city's Luisen hospital shortly after 5 p.m. and hospital staff almost immediately afterwards noticed smoke billowing in her vicinity. The police operation was ongoing and that special forces were on site trying to solve the situation. Haitian soldiers patrolled near Port-au-Prince's International Airport after heavy gunfire was reported nearby by the airport authorities. The soldiers were seen near the Toussaint Louverture International Airport following a reported gunfight with armed gangs in the surrounding area. On Sunday, Haiti's de facto government issued a 72-hour state of emergency and imposed nightly curfews after armed men busted thousands from prison and a gang leader called for the ousting of Prime Minister Ariel Henry. Next in sports, another goals galore by Arsenal as the league summit remains in sight. Arsenal matched their biggest Premier League away win with a 6-0 pummeling of Sheffield United early today after scoring 5 times in the first half when they tore the home side apart and have closed within 2 points of leaders Liverpool. The Gunners also made history by becoming the first English side to win 3 consecutive away matches by a margin of 5 or more goals. Arsenal were ruthless as they sliced through Sheffield United's defence with ease from the start. Odegaard opened the floodgates with his 5th-minute goal, firing home from the middle of the box after a cute cutback from Declan Rice. Jayden Bogle put through his own goal in the 13th before Gabriel Martinelli struck 2 minutes later, sending scores of wary United fans to the Bramall Lane exits, while Kai Havertz, Rice and Ben White also netted a goal each. The Gunners are the first Premier League team with 7 wins in a row this season and appear to be gaining momentum at just the right time to keep the pressure on the top 2. Mikel Arteta's team are third with 61 points after 27 games, a point behind Manchester City, but with a much better goal difference than their title rivals. The Blades remain rooted to the bottom on 13 points, 11 adrift off the safety zone. Still in the world of football, but this time over in Asia, Al Ain will take a 1-0 lead into the second leg of their Asian Champions League quarter-final against Cristiano Ronaldo's Al Nassr next week after the United Arab Emirates side saw off the 10-man Saudi Pro League outfit on Monday. Sufyan Rahimi's 44th minute strike earned Hernan Crespo's side a slender advantage for the home team, with former Manchester City defender Aymeric Laporte ruled out of the return after his late sending off. Referee Hiroyuki Kimura dismissed Laporte for violent conduct 4 minutes into added time following a tussle with Bandar Al-Ababi to bring a fraught end to a high-octane clash at a packed Hazar bin Zayed stadium. The winner of the tie will face either Al Hilal or Al Ittihad in the semi-finals, with the Saudi pair due to face off in the first leg of their quarter-final on Tuesday. On the other side of the draw, South Korean duo Ulsan Hyundai and Jeongbuk Motors will also meet on the same day, while Japan's Yokohama F Marinos take on Shandong Taishan from China on Wednesday. We move on now to the world of motorsports. Reigning MotoGP double world champion Francesco Bagnaia has extended his contract with Ducati by 2 years until 2026. This was announced by the Italian team on X, formerly known as Twitter. The 27-year-old is aiming for a 3rd consecutive world crown during the 2024 season, which begins this weekend in Qatar. Bagnaia has always ridden a Ducati since he joined the Premier category in 2019, initially with the Pramac satellite team and since 2021 with the official team. The Turin-born rider, who went through the VR46 Academy, founded by Italian great Valentino Rossi, has 18 MotoGP race wins, including 7 last season. The 21-race 2024 MotoGP season begins this Sunday in Qatar at the Lusail International Circuit, where Bagnaia set the fastest ever lap time on 2 wheels to close out official testing in February. The head of Formula One's governing body, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, is under investigation for allegedly interfering in the outcome of last year's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. BBC reported that it saw a report by FIA compliance officer Paolo Bassari to its ethics committee in which a whistleblower claimed the president had intervened to overturn a penalty given to Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso. It alleged that Ben Sulayem called Sheikh Abdullah bin Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, the FIA's vice president for sport for the Middle East and North Africa, who was in an official capacity at the race. Double world champion Alonso was handed back the 100th podium of his Formula One career after a U-turn by officials hours after the finish in Jeddah on 19th March last year. The 41-year-old Spaniard had finished third, but was demoted to fourth by a 10-second post-race penalty for failing to serve properly, a 5-second penalty for an error in placing his car on the starting grid. Stewards found the rear jack was in contact with the car before the 5 seconds were up. The second penalty, imposed more than 30 laps after his pit stop, was then reversed when his team won a right to review after presenting new evidence to support their case. To end our sports segment, news about the Olympics. With a nod to surrealism and an obsession with detail, the official posters for the Paris 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Games, unveiled yesterday, highlights the capital's historic monuments and sports facilities. The respective posters for the Olympic and Paralympic Games, designed by Parisian artist Ugo Gattoni, complemented each other to form a double poster. They illustrate the main historical monuments in Paris, such as the Eiffel Tower, the Arc de Triomphe, and the Grand Palais. The official posters are inspired by the surrealist artistic movement, with a level of precision and detail unprecedented in the history of the Olympic and Paralympic Games.
Moi, je voulais quelque chose, voilà, de chaleureux, de joyeux, voilà, et j'ose espérer que ça soit ça aussi Paris 2024, c'est que ça va être un moment pas du tout solennel, que ce soit joyeux, chaleureux, qui va accueillir le monde entier, les athlètes du monde entier. C'était aussi la vision de ces affiches.
Through this artistic choice, Paris 2024 is paying tribute to the Surrealist Manifesto, written by André Breton and published in 1924, the year of the last Olympic Games to be held in the French capital. And that caps our bulletin for today. Wrapping up with a recap of our top story: PM engages with business leaders from top Australian companies. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and Saluran Berita. We leave you with visual of 8 pilots wearing jet suits, whizzing through the air and dodging various obstacles in the world's first jet suit race last week. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Darryl Baptist. Stay tuned to TV2.